All right. Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sukhe Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vigna Vinashana Simhayati Namine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatadine. Can you all say the Panchatattva mantra together with me? Jaya Sri Krishna
Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu
Prabhu
Nityananda Shri Advaita
Nityananda
Gadadhara
Gadadhara
Srivasadi
Gaura
Okay. Now, I just want you all to do a small thing, right? I want you all to think of your favorite Hare Krishna tune, each of you, right? And one by one, we can all say the tune. We can sing together, okay? Not together, we will do it one by one. So I'm going to do first, right? So I'll just say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, Kavinesh, continue. You can choose different tune if you want. Kavinesh, sing.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Nice. Next, Nanda Kumar.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Excellent. Leela Madhuri. Okay, then we try Pavitra first. Leela Madhuri is next.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nice. Remember your favorite tunes. Next, Leela Madhuri. No, Shankari then.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
All right. What about your brother, Shaktivel?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Excellent. The last one now, Leela Madhuri. Can you sing? No? You have a problem with your mic? Okay, never mind then. So, right, I just wanted to hear all your favorite tunes. So next time I know. Okay. So let's move on. Okay. I want to ask you a question first. Right? Are we all the same? Can you give me your feedback? What do you think? Think about it. Are we all the same? You can just speak.
We are all part and parcels of Krishna.
Okay, we are all the same in that sense. We are all jivas. We are all part and parcel of Krishna. Yes, in that sense, you agree. We are all the same. Anyone disagrees? You can. Please argue out. In one sense, yes, we are all the same. Yes. There are other ways.
Maybe,
Yeah. Speak.
maybe in our opinion, we are not all the same.
Say again. I couldn't hear.
Maybe in our opinion, we are
Opinion.
not all the
Excellent.
same.
All right. That's a very good point. Yes. Because we have different minds, isn't it? We have different likes, right? So we have different opinions. So in that sense, we are not all the same. Anyone else? Either for or against? What about the way we look? Are we all the same? Some are short, some are tall, right? So how many of you say all are the same, right? Actually, it's a trick question for you. Because both ways also you are not wrong. And in that sense, yes. So let me give you an answer, a very political answer to this, right? Are we all the same? Actually, the answer is we are all different. We are not the same. But as Kavinesh have said, right, we have something in common. So we aren't all the same because we have different opinions, we have different bodies, we have different mindsets, right? Right? We even speak different languages, isn't it? Sometimes, right? But we are all at the same time, there's another side to the coin. We are all equal still, like how Kavinesh has said, we are all jivas, isn't it? Part and parcel of Krishna, the spiritual spark. Just like how a drop of salt water is the same in quality as the ocean, right? So in that sense, we are all equal. Anyone else can say how else we are all equal? Because if we want to say how we are different, we can find many, many ways. Let's see how we are all equal. Anyone else want to say something?
We are the soul, not the body.
Yes, we are all souls. Yes, we are not the body, correct. But that's part of the same point as part and parcel of Krishna, yes, because we are talking about the soul.
Our constitutional position is the same.
Okay, we are parts and parcels of Krishna. We are all Jiva Swarupa Hoy, Krishnera Nityadas. We are all eternally supposed to be servants of the Lord. Okay, fine. We are equal in that sense. So that means what you're saying is we are all devotees. Not all, I mean, we don't realize it yet, but actually our Swarup is that. Anything else? Let's not go so high-minded. Let's go something which is more common. Are we all living entities? Yes, right? We all are human beings, correct? Right? If we cut our finger, we will all bleed. Our blood all red, right? Anybody got purple blood? Right? We can have yellow blood. You know, blood can become pus. So then it becomes yellow. So we all bleed the same way. We all feel pain the same way. Sometimes we all feel pain. Some people feel more pain sometimes, right? And so therefore, we aren't all the same, but at the same time, we are all equal in one way, in many ways actually. So therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, there's this famous verse, right? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Sunichaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadharshinaha. So what it says, a humble sage sees everyone as equal, right? So have you heard of this word, unity in diversity? Have you heard of this sentence? Come, answer. Unity in diversity. Have you heard this before? You know? All right. That means we are all different, but we still have common threads holding us together, right? So therefore, in our diversity, we become united. We have different races, we have different types of background, different social economy, but we are all united in one goal, right? As a human, as a devotees, we are all united. So one who is wise, one who is very spiritually advanced can see this, that we are all different, but at the same time, we are all equal, okay? So even in modern day, we have this kind of understanding. Like if you look at, have you heard of something called Bloom's taxonomy, right? Bloom's taxonomy says, it's somebody called Bloom. This is used in education all over the world, right? They say that there are three types of learning and abilities. Everybody has different abilities, isn't it? You all agree, right? So they classify these different abilities into three domains. So here we have one, the cognitive domain. Cognitive domain means one who is very much into thinking. They like to think, they like to analyze, they like to use their intelligence in different ways to come up with new concepts, new theories. So they like memorizing, reasoning. So they're good at that naturally. You don't have to train so hard, like some people, they go to school or they go anywhere, they are naturally very good in certain things like this. And then there are some types of people who are what we call affective domain. Affective, they are very, you know empathic. They have lots of empathy. Have you seen, how many of you have gone to movies, and then when it's a very sad scene and you all have also felt like crying? I'm sure you have, some of you at least, right? Of course, to feel, some of you, you're very scared of horror movies, right? You see scary ghost pictures. It's the TV. It's TV. You know that you are not there. It's not you. But then you still feel scared. You still feel sad. You still feel, but it's not part of you. So this kind of people, we can understand they have very strong connection with emotions, empathy, feelings. So they are able to make very good counselors. They are very understanding people. They are very, very fine, refined people. They are able to be very careful in society. They have lots of friends, or sometimes they become very sensitive. If it turns in a very different way, it can also be very sensitive. So this is another aspect. So this is domain, affective domain. Then there's something called psychomotor. Like some people, right? They are good at sports, isn't it? Like you ask to play mridanga, someone who is very good in reading and studying, right? You ask them to play mridanga, they cannot play mridanga. Their hands just cannot move in the right way. Or even like martial arts, you go for martial arts, some people just, it's not easy for them to follow. Or dancing, right? So, you get my idea. So there are some people who are good in certain things, right? Some who are not good in certain things. Do we all agree with this? Please feel free to disagree. We can discuss nicely. It's nice if you disagree also, then we can talk about it. Anyone disagrees? So this is quite common sense, isn't it? I'm not reading the chat, so please, if you have something to say, just speak directly. So it's quite common sense, isn't it? We know that there are different types of people. Like, for example, I don't like to do certain things, right? It's normal. It happens. So therefore, we have situations like this all over the world. Even nowadays, if you see the common society, let's look at society. Let's look at companies. Let's look at how companies work, right? Or even how governments work. We have all types of talents, isn't it? For example, we have CEO, ministers, religious heads. So these are usually people who are very good at thinking. They are able to, at least theoretically it should be lah. I don't know about what's happening in the political scene at these days, right? But usually, right, if you talk about businesses, if you want a business to do well, like let's say we take Steve Jobs, right, Apple, or we take Nadella from Microsoft, or we take who else, Facebook, Zuckerberg. So these are CEOs. So they are able to think, they are able to plan, they are visionaries. So that's one type of people, isn't it? But these same people sometimes are not good at other things. So there are some people who do this kind of work. At the same time, we have heads of departments who are leading different aspects. Okay, this head of department is very good at human relationship. So they become HR, human resource head, like that. Huh? Then there are some types of department heads who become technical people, right? Like a head of science, head of research, like that. And even if you look at governments, we have bureaucrats, isn't it? So different types of ministries, Ministry of Women, Ministry of Education, right? And we have different executives, different services, all the way down to the janitor. You know what's a janitor? Janitor is the one who washes the toilet, right, in the companies, isn't it? So based on the type of personality, the type of abilities, or the type of inclination we have, we like to do certain things. Like, for example, if you ask the janitor to become a head of maybe, if let's say head of public relationship, right? You ask the janitor to go and lead public relations and do media talks and publicity stunts. He may feel very uncomfortable, right? Because why? Why do you think such a person would feel very uncomfortable? Anyone likes to say something? The question is, if I take someone who is comfortable, okay, let's look at someone who's comfortable at cleaning things, and then you ask them to do something which is different, like become a public relations personality, right? Do you think the person will feel comfortable just suddenly changing? I mean, he may want to do it because, I'll get more money and all that, right? That's different story. What I get out of it is a different story. But will the person be comfortable?
No, Prabhu.
No, no, Prabhu.
Yeah, right. Who answered? Pavitra, is it?
Yes.
All right. Then can you tell me what you like to do and what you don't like to do? It can be anything. You can just say cooking. Yeah, what?
Maybe I like reading.
All right. What you don't like to do?
Um,
It's okay. Don't be shy. Just say, it's all right to say, I don't like maths. I won't tell your parents.
I don't like maths.
Okay. So if I ask you to do maths all the time and say, like, for the next 30 years, this is your job. You're going to become a mathematician when you grow up, right? Will you feel like comfortable? You won't, isn't it? It's natural, right? So
Yes.
why do you think this is so? Okay. One reason is because our inherent nature, all right? Another aspect is also because of training. We lack the training maybe, right? So interest is one, training is another, right? The type of association you may have is another. So there are Therefore, we can understand there are different levels of people in this world. Now, let's go back. You may say that this is happening now, but what about the past? Now, even if you look back at few hundred years, right? I'm talking about Europe, let's say Europe. So we go to Europe in the 18th century, 16th century, 15th century, Europe, okay? Or even 12th century Europe. Even as early as 10th century like that, the same, you can see here the pyramid, there will be a priest leader, in those days in Europe, most of the countries were Catholic, and all the kings will have to actually give some answer to the Pope who was in Rome. So the Pope was actually the real leader at that time, right? You all heard of the Holy War and all that, right? If you have not, then it's something very interesting. You can read about those things. So you can see the social structure at that time. There were monarch. Monarch means the king. There were, bangsawan, nobles, people who are like those who are like who will actually lead the army, right? We have knights, warriors, right? And then we have vassals. Vassals are also like other bangsawan, but smaller, lower types. Then we have merchants, farmers, craftsmen. So people who are comfortable doing this kind of work. And we also have people who are peasants who will do the actual work, or like peasants can also be those who are like serving the merchants, serving the farmers. In other words, servants. Like we have butler, we have maids. So these are types of peasants or serf. So in other words, you can basically divide society, right, into several levels. We'll talk about that a bit more, but let's look at some other societies. Now, if you may say that's Europe, so let's look at the opposite corner of the world. Let's go to Japan. Now, if you go to Japan, this is a few hundred years also, right? You will still see there will be an emperor, right? And there will be wealthy lords. So these wealthy lords, and then they will have lots of samurai warriors under them. And these samurai warriors can also become wealthy lords. And eventually they can also become emperor, right? And you also have business people and farmers, right? And artisans, people who make beautiful things, right? And merchants, business category. So in Japan, they put merchants at a lower level. Peasants and artisans were a higher level. So the way society organizes is slightly different compared to Europe, if you remember, right? It may be different, but still you will find that there is definitely classes, isn't it? We agree, right? So far, anytime you all disagree, just interrupt me and then we can have a discussion, right? Don't disagree silently, right? It's good to disagree so we can understand that you have different opinions. So let's look at Egypt, Egyptian social class. We still have the same. It's interesting that whichever part of the world you look at whichever period of time, you will still see social classes. You'll still see a king, priests. Here again, we have priests. In Europe, the priest was higher. Here, the priest is lower, but still is in the same level as commander and nobles, right? Then you have traders, then you have farmers, then you have unskilled laborers and things like that. So the classes are still there. Interesting. But at one point, these classes became, it's there, but what happens when one class oppresses another class? What happens if the king is so cruel and he starts oppressing the citizens? What happens if the noble people, the leaders of the Kshatriya, the warriors and the leaders, let's say you have an evil knight, he goes around terrorizing the countryside, right? Or a bad samurai who goes around and wages war and makes the people suffer. So this is Kali Yuga, right? So what's the nature of Kali Yuga? The age of, anyone can say what's the age of Kali Yuga? Is known for
Aids of quarrel and hypocrisy.
Yes, very good. Quarrel. So everywhere fight, 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 fight. So therefore we have problems because everybody is consumed by greed, by consumed by so many of the other aspects, you know. So therefore they misuse the system. It's horrible. We don't want to have such people, but there are such people a lot in this world. So what happens then? You can see this picture. Anyone can tell me what's this picture about? Let's see your history. Anyone knows? Can you tell me what country this is at least? You can see that's the French flag, right? French, right? So read about it. There's something called the French Revolution. If you have not heard about the French Revolution, please, when later you have time, you can Google it, or you will also study it in your history. At least I hope you do nowadays. So what's the French Revolution all about? French Revolution is, you know, at one point, this was in the 17th, 18th century, 1798 to be precise. During this time, the king, right, and also the queen, Marie Antoinette was the queen, and she had a lot of corrupt nobles. They were also corrupt. The king, I forgot the name of the king, Jean something, I think, and the queen Marie Antoinette, they were all very corrupt. They were so greedy that they took all the money from the people, and the people were practically starving. They used to have lavish parties, you know, and when someone used to come and tell Marie Antoinette, the queen, they will come and tell Marie Antoinette, "Oh, my queen, your citizens are starving. They don't even have bread." And you know what was the reply? This was the famous reply of Marie Antoinette. You know what she said? She said, "If they don't have bread, why don't they eat cake?" This was the reply by Marie Antoinette. And it was spread to the whole country, and the people became so angry they just couldn't take it anymore. They said, "Ha, that's it with the nobility." So the entire population rose, and they caught all the kings, the king and the queen. They brought this Marie Antoinette, they brought the nobleman. Every nobleman was brought, and there was a very intelligent fella who built this structure. Can you see the structure? This structure is called the guillotine. You know what's for? The guillotine has a huge blade at the top. You know, they put the person here face down, and then they drop this blade. So it drops and it cuts off your head, and the head will fall in a basket. See, he's holding the head here. You can see, and everybody will come and see. So this was the end of it. So, you know, this was how the monarchy in France ended. Up till then, France always had kings and queens. But with this French Revolution in 1798, right? No more kings and queens, no more even nobility. Everybody was considered equal. So these people, they were so upset with the corruption. They said, let there not be classes in society. Why should there be classes? Why should you be noble? Why should you be priest? Let everybody become equal. Now, we were discussing just now, right? Even now, nobody is actually equal, right? Because we are all, no, we are all equal, correct? But we are all different. We have different tendencies. So sometimes we have people who are very greedy, who are not very intelligent, who may be not trained properly, but simply because they were very cunning, they become popular, right? And you somehow they become the leader of society. Do you think the society is going to prosper? It won't, isn't it? Right? So, you know, sometimes we see that nowadays, you know, our local political scenes and all that. We have very, very unqualified people leading. So there is certain quality that's needed also. So these people, they were so upset, the French, and they had classless society. But do you know what happened after that? After they had their classless society, you know what happened? What happened was even more people died of starvation. Even more people started suffering because no more kings and queens, no more nobility, but there were many corrupt people, and these corrupt people somehow took power. It became a republic. Everybody was called citizens. And after the revolution came the what is called the Dark Ages of France, the black years they call it. So this was rampant. Lots of people suffered. So society didn't prosper actually. So this is evidence from the future, from the past, that even if there was no social distinction, even if there was no society which was divided into kings or lords or merchants, still there was one type of social class. There was always going to be the wealthy elite, the middle class, and the poor majority. So even after the French Revolution, they found that these things were still there. Wealthy people were still there, middle class people were still there, majority of the poor were still there. So in one sense, the social classes, it changed, but it still remained. So this is evidence from the past. So it's not really possible to destroy the social class. Then we have nowadays, democracy. So already you can see lots of problems with democracy. You can see here, these are all real slogans. It's not something which I photoshopped. Democracy is a failed system, right? This is in the Middle East. Trump is not my president. So this was democracy also. And people have written books. See, this book was written by Hans somebody. Democracy, the God that failed. So we have these problems, even with the so-called classless society, because still we get the same thing. We get the wealthy rich, the elite, the small percentage, right? And the majority of those who are laborers. Have you heard of the 2080 rule? The 2080 rule says that 80% of the resources of the world is owned and enjoyed by 20% of the population of the world. So that means 80% are poor, 20% are wealthy. So despite the classless society, isn't it? So in Malaysia also, we have this T20, M40, B40 group. Have you heard of that? You might have heard. The B40 are the bottom 40. B stands for bottom. These are the poor society, right? Their income is less, very, very little. They suffer. And then we have the middle 40. That means those who are in the mid. So the M40 and the B40 together make up 80%. And then we have the T20 who are extremely rich, the super rich, right? So still, despite the classless society of democracy, we still have this kind of classes. So it's not possible to destroy classless society because we have politicians who made up the T20, we have greedy businessmen, right? And we have the poor who actually do most of the work, B40. So some people say, right, Marxism, socialism, they try to destroy society. Again, they say, no, we cannot have a classless society. It's possible to have a classless society. So this guy, Marx, after the French Revolution collapsed in 1798, in the middle 18th century, this fellow Marx, Karl Marx, he came up with this socialism or communism, right? Where everybody is the same, equal. No more bourgeois. Bourgeois means the intelligent class. No more, but they are not nobility. They are not noblemen, but they are very intelligent people. So no more bourgeois, no more laborers, no more any other types of people, only one class. Still, we all know how Marxism is failing also, right? It failed to produce the classless society. You go to Russia, right? You can see evidence of that. You ask any Russian, he will be very happy to give you a 1-hour talk on about how Marxism has failed. Still, they have the same, very wealthy, very poor, right? So why do you think these social systems failed? Can anyone tell me? Can anyone put the dot on the problem? What is the reason these social systems failed? Anyone can tell me quickly?
It's because of self gratification.
Yes, because they were corrupt, they were greedy, they were corrupt. Because they were corrupt, they misused their position. Thank you for that. Right? So what does that mean? Does that mean we should destroy the society? No more classless society? So the same, I can give you an example. Let's say you have an eye problem. You see this picture here, this is cataract. A person who has cataract, they cannot see. And sometimes some people have eye problems where it causes pain. They have pus forming in the eye. It becomes very painful. So what's the solution? I'm so sick and tired of this eye pain. So therefore, I will pull out my eyes. Is that the solution? That's the foolishness, right? That's first class foolishness. So that's what's been done, right? Unfortunately, that's what's been happening with this world, with society as well. So classless society cannot be the solution because it's been seen and it's failed. And even then, you cannot actually eliminate the classless society because people have different tendencies, correct? Now, at this point, I want to ask every one of you, do you agree to all that I've been saying so far? Anyone has a slightly different opinion?
No, Prabhu, everything's okay.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll give you a count to 5. If you have anything to say, speak now or forever hold your silence. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay. So all of you agree. That's great. All of you are very, very intelligent. Now, you know why we cannot destroy society? Why we cannot make classless society? We cannot have classless society because this was created by God. This was actually decided by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. You can see Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says in 4.13, very famous verse, Chaturvarnyam Maya Shrishtam, right? Guna Karma Vibhagasaha. So what does that mean? According to the 3 modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the 4 divisions of human society are created by me. So by who? Created by the Lord. So that's why, despite the many Marxism, democracy, or whatever, we cannot have classless society because it's there. It's the nature of the creation, right? People have different natures according to their 3 modes of material nature. Everybody knows what's the 3 mode of material nature, right? Right? Okay, I'll get to that. So therefore, this system of having different classes of society is called Varnashrama. So the word Varna means, what does Varna mean in Malay? Color, right? Varna means color. So same, in Sanskrit, Varna is color. And ashram means a place for me to live, a place for me to take shelter, right? So that's Varna and ashram. I have different colors of houses. That's what Varna ashram means. Red color house, blue color house, green color house. Even in school, you have sports day, right? You have different houses, isn't it? Same thing, right? So therefore, different houses. How are you placed in this? Have you seen Harry Potter? You have seen Harry Potter, how Harry Potter sorts, right? We have the sorting hat, isn't it? You have the Gryffindor house, you have the Hufflepuff house, Slytherin house, and all that. So how the sorting hat, so actually J.K. Rowling, she took the idea from our scriptures because we are the ones saying we have classes, whereas the Western society is saying classless, but we say we have class. So it's sorted and it's four divisions of human society. So again, J.K. Rowling took the idea from us, from Bhagavad Gita, right? So what are these 4 divisions? So you can see in Krishna divides human society into Brahmanas. Brahmanas are the thinking ones, the types who are like the very intelligent society. Then we have the very strong and very chivalrous and courageous. So like in we have Ravenclaw. We can say Brahmanas are like Ravenclaw. It's not a very good example, but like that lah. I mean, I'm giving a fun analogy for the youths, right? Ravenclaw, Brahmanas. Then we have the Gryffindors for the courageous Kshatriyas who like to fight, who defend Dharma, right? So like that, we have different, and we have the Slytherins who are very sneaky, right? And they are very good at getting what they want. So mercantile class are good at that, right? So similarly, and we have the hard workers, right? Now let's move on. So they are grouped according to the three modes of material nature. So I'm not going to talk about this. This is a very huge topic. If you are interested, read Bhagavad Gita from chapter 13 onwards up to chapter 18. It talks a lot about these things. We can have another talk about this another time, right? But in brief, Sattva. What is Sattva? Sattva is mode of goodness. Basically, you can see some of the qualities of these modes of goodness lah. And then we have Rajas. Rajas is passion. Passion. I'm very passionate about this. I'm very passionate about that, right? It's basically activity, energy, excitement. That's mode of passion. And then we have Tamas. Tamas is ignorance. That means no knowledge. Vidya, avidya, ignorant, lazy, a sense gratification, dullness. So opposite of sattva in one sense. So there are these three modes of nature, and we are all born with some of these three. Sometimes we are born a little bit more, sometimes we are born with a little bit less of certain aspects. Now that's birth. But you know, these three modes are very complicated. Even if you are born with one set, but it's not all the time you are like that. You cannot say that I'm always lazy, isn't it? Sometimes you will say certain things excite me, right? And sometimes I'm very reflective and calm, right? So we have our shifts of nature. So it's very complicated. Actually, these three modes of nature, they take, it's like a, you know, these three, you can see this picture here, it's like a rope, blue, green, red. So they are intertwining all the time, and not just one set, many sets of ropes like this intertwine together and form your psychology and your behavior. So you can see a mixture between sattva and tamas, mixture. So like that, you have different combinations of this, right? So like that, you can have 27 different types of nature. So according to the 27 different types of nature, you have the 27 nakshatras which you are born with. So some nakshatras are sattva, sattva, sattva. Some nakshatras are sattva, tama, and rajas, like that. So that's your birth nature, but it also changes according to your qualities as you develop, as you go on in life. So in this way, this social society, the social class, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, right? These four different social classes are also predominantly affected by these three modes, you could say lah. For example, the Brahmana and the Brahmana and the Kshatriya, you can say, are predominantly in the mode of goodness. Why? Because the Brahmanas are having knowledge about the goal of life. They have knowledge and they know what's right and what's wrong. So in other words, they know dharma. Okay? So Brahmana and Kshatriyas, because Kshatriyas are guided by these Brahmanas. So mode of goodness. And then we have, so the Brahmanas are fully in the mode of goodness. No mixture with other two modes. Whereas the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas are a mixture. The Kshatriyas are a mixture of mode of goodness and mode of passion, Rajas. You need to have passion to fight, isn't it? Imagine you see your enemy and then you tell your enemy, Om, and you say, I forgive you for cutting my hand off, right? It's not practical, correct? So a Kshatriya, if somebody insults a Kshatriya, he'll become extremely angry. Hey, how dare you spoke to me like this? You insulted me. That's it. I challenge you to a duel now. Come and meet me if you are brave. So that's Kshatriya nature. So they are like that. So it's necessary for them to protect. The word Kshatriya comes from the word Shat Atraya. So that means to protect. That's the very definition of Kshatriya. So then we have Vaishyas. So Vaishya are a combination of the modes of passion and the modes of ignorance. Because they are very outcome based. Vaishya people, they measure things with tangible things. That means they need to measure how much money I made, how much followers I've had, how much how much grains I have collected, how many cows I have. So they are always counting, right? So there is a bit of passion in collecting. At the same time, their goal is not towards higher things like liberation and spiritual perfection. Their goal is towards counting. I want this. How much money I have? How much this I have? So these things don't really solve the difficulties of life, right? So their goal is in a lower level. So therefore, it is mode of ignorance mixed. So then we have what we call the Shudras. So Shudras are purely in the modes of ignorance. So they do not understand higher goals of life. Not only they don't understand, they are not interested also. Sometimes they are not bothered. You tell them about certain things, they just say, "Aya, boring la. I don't want to hear all this. Let me look at football, or let me look at this." Right? They are interested in sense gratification. So that would be Shudra mentality. Right? So we understand the three modes of nature and how it affects the four classes of society. So therefore we have here Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So now, so we have also the four categories of human existence, right? We have Dharma. So the Brahmanas are very interested in Dharma. What is Dharma? Dharma means what I should do, what I should not do, what is my duty, right? So they are very duty bound, right? So that's people who are very disciplined. So these are Brahmanas. You can see they are very much into moksha as well as dharma. What is moksha? So before I talk about all that, let me tell you, in human life, right, we have duties, right? You cannot say no. As a child, I have duty. As a student, I have duty. As a parent, I have duty, right? So there are duties always. So there are higher duties and there are lower duties. Lower duties are like material duties. Like I need to earn money, I need to support this, right? I need to. So whereas higher duties are duties which actually are prescribed by religion, by religious texts for the satisfaction of God. So those are higher duties, dharma. So both are duties lah, dharma. So you can see what kind of duties the Brahmanas must do. They need to study Vedas. They need to have the intelligence to understand Vedic scripture, and they need to be able to teach achar and prachar. And they need to be able to perform sacrifices, carry out as well as teach. And they are also very renounced people. They are very charitable. That means greed is not present. They need to accept as well as give charity. And these are the qualities of the Brahmanas. Just now I mentioned the duties. Now I'm talking about the quality. So peacefulness, they are very peaceful because no mode of passion, right? Very peaceful. You can insult, there are some people like that. Even not only in devotee circle, you go to Chinese people, you go to Malay people, anywhere outside also, there are some people like that. I know one of my colleagues is a Malay fella. He tells me that never in his life he has gotten angry. I was like, wow. And I actually see him in my office. He never gets angry for any situation. He's always calm. So some people are born like that, right? They are peaceful. And another type of people, They are self-control. They have a lot of self-control. You know, you see some people who are very strong. They even if they have certain desires, they will tell themselves, no, I will not do this. They have iron determination, right? Then some people who are very tolerant, right? Someone insults you also, you are tolerant. Someone, they are very calm. Satyam, truthful. They always speak the truth. It doesn't even occur to them to lie. So some people are like that, natural. Saucham, naturally they are clean. You put them in a situation where it's dirty, they feel very uncomfortable, right? And they are also simple. They don't want to complicate their lives. Simple, very little thing. You just give them dal, rice, every day also they are happy. As long as they get dal rice, they are happy. So there are some people like that. All right, that's Brahminical types of people. And then there are some people of a nature who are Kshatriya. So Kshatriya, they are more into Dharma. They are also into Dharma, right? But not so much into moksha. They want to serve. They want to do the best for society. So therefore they protect. You see here, charity is very important for them. They also must give lots of charity, but they never accept charity. And their main role is to protect. Give protection to the other classes. And they are also well versed in Shastras, but generally they are forbidden to teach. Why? Because they have contamination with the mode of passion. So sometimes, you know, they will be political. Oh, I will only teach this fella because, you know, in the future he can become my ally. I won't teach another fella because he will become my enemy in the future. So therefore, when it comes to teaching, they have to be neutral. So they don't have that ability. So usually Kshatriyas are forbidden to teach. And then they are also brave lah, chivalry. You know, if they fall down, they get hurt, they won't cry. They will still move on. You know, there are many people like that. I know many ladies like that who, while cooking, they actually burn their fingers, they burn their hand, but that doesn't put them off. They still continue cooking. They can control the pain. So there are some people like this. That's Kshatriya nature. And then we have Vaishya. Vaishya is, you can see here, this is the real definition of a Vaishya. A Vaishya is expected to not only count the number of his cows, but to give protection to each and every one of his cows. So it's basically protection of animals, agriculture, food distribution, charity. So merchantiling is also there. That means you also do business. That's also Vaishya. But these are the main goals of Vaishya. And finally, we have Shudras. So Shudras are those people who don't fall into any of these other categories, but at the same time, they are very faithful, right? And their main quality, the main quality of a Shudra is faithfulness. So that is Shudra. And sometimes, and Shudras are generally to be maintained by the other classes. So you can see here, no independence is given. Why no independence is given? Because they don't understand the higher goals of life. So if you give them independence in sense gratification, then they will just spend their time doing that only. If you give them independence with finance, then they will use that money for sense gratification because they don't understand the higher goals. They don't even sometimes have discrimination. They don't know what is right, what is wrong. So in Kali Yuga, in all of us are mostly having Shudra qualities. Now, what does that mean? In Kali Yuga, we are all Shudras. Bhagavatam says so, right? Most of us, majority of us have these qualities. But still, there are some with all these, some other qualities we also have. But very, very limited. Very few of us, right? But still, it's important to identify and note. I'll talk about this a bit more towards the later part of the slides. How does that mean in Kali Yuga? How do we work? You know, previous yugas, yes, it's very nice. We have lots of Brahmanas. We have lots of Kshatriyas like this. But what about now? So, as I told you before, failure of a system, just because a system is corrupted, does not mean that the system is useless. Correct? So how do we determine Varna? How do we determine who is Brahmana, who is Kshatriya, who is Vaishya? So, the verse, we look at scripture. Bhavisha Purana says that one's Varna is determined by one's character, one's qualities, one's training. So one sometimes can be trained, and one's work. So in the end, what is he doing? What kind of work is he doing in the end? So these are the 4 things you can look at. For example, one may be born with a certain character and qualities, right? Someone who is very peaceful, who is always, or someone who is very passionate about certain things, but he may not be passionate about everything. He may be passionate about fighting, but he may not be passionate about learning, for example. And at the same time, also what kind of training? You may have the character, you may have the quality, but suppose you are not trained, you have not gone for the training, right? So you may not know what to do. But then there are some people who have the character, who have the quality, who have the training, but they are doing a work which is completely different. For example, a very peaceful and calm and intelligent butcher, right? So a butcher, right? You don't expect the butcher to be very sandamana personality, isn't it? But they may be, right? And but he's not doing the work of his nature. So similarly, likewise, people who are like that, but they are forced to do work which is not really making them. So that's why in Kali Yuga, we find lots of people who are not really happy with their work. They are not happy with their training. Nowadays in Kali Yuga, we have the one system schooling system where everybody is forced to go to school and everybody must learn history, geography, mathematics, science. Not everybody is uh, inclined in those things. So then some people are happy. Some people like science. But some people say, ayo, what a horrible thing to study. So some people are like that. So they have their nature. Unfortunately, this is the way the world works nowadays, right? And some people, they're not happy with the work. Oh my God, I don't like this job. I want to go to a different job. Can I be I don't want to work, can I? So some people will have that kind of idea, right? So this is how one's Varna can be. It was determined like that in those days. In the previous Yuga, there will be a guru who will be able to see, and there was also social system to support it, and there was also Kshatriyas and leaders of society to support this kind of Varna. So as a result, society was very, very progressive because the best people with the best qualities were given the best training for that particular kind of work, which they will do in the future, which they were happy to do. You see what I mean? So imagine everybody was like that. Their best character, their particular character was taken, particular training was given, and the best work for them given. And they were happy. So they were not complaining. So even the Shudras were happy. Why? Because the Shudras were well maintained by the Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas, before they have a sacrifice or a fire sacrifice, they need to first of all give charity to the Shudras. They need to first satisfy the Shudras. The Shudra has to have full belly. They cannot be hungry. The Shudra must be given nice clothes and they need to be satisfied. Then only the sacrifice has to take place. After the sacrifice is completed, then they need to satisfy the Brahmana. So that is how it worked in those days. But you know what has happened these days? In India, we still have this caste system. What has happened is just like how the French Revolution, the nobility misused their power and oppressed those other classes. In the same way, in India, the Brahminical society misused their power. And to ensure, those days Brahmanas were very respected, given a position. So they were enjoying that kind of privileges. So then they were very intelligent. So they decided, okay, let's try to make this permanent. You know, I am a Brahmana, but my son is a useless fella. He's not being a Brahminical. He's being completely not following what I'm teaching him. So what will happen to him? So therefore, this kind of Brahmanas, they started to build a system. They said, let's make it so that everybody, that let's interpret the scripture differently and say that Brahmana, Kshatriya, the Varnas are decided by birth only. So in this way, they sent a propaganda. They made a propaganda to everybody, and then they spread this kind of system everywhere. So that's what has become in India at the moment. So that is what is called as the caste system. So whether you are having this quality or not, as long as your great grandfather was a Brahmana, you are also a Brahmana. So that's nonsense. It's like saying my great grandfather was a doctor, so therefore I'm also a doctor. Does it work like that? Can we say my great grandmother was a pilot, so therefore I'm also a born pilot? I should be a pilot. Does it work like that? It doesn't work, right? Stupid. It's actually stupid. But you know, the Brahmanas were very powerful in those days, and somehow they made this propaganda, and people in a certain position, they enjoyed being higher than another lower position. So therefore they like to keep this. It was already set. So it became a big problem. So that's the corruption of the Varna system. So you can see here, I've got evidence. I'm not simply saying, it says here, Srimad Bhagavatam, if one shows the symptoms of being a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra, even if he has appeared in a different class, that means even if he took birth in a different class, he should be accepted according to those symptoms of classifications. These are the symptoms, right? So it's mentioned, it's scriptural. So somehow these people, they have misused it. So further, Bhavisha Purana also says, right, these different social orders, you know, but simply being born in a particular family does not automatically grant one his social status. So this is mentioned in the Bhavisha Purana. Just like an intelligent person can easily recognize a horse in the midst of many cows. If you can see many cows, if there's one horse there, you can recognize that's a horse, right? It's not a cow. So similarly, one who is intelligent, so like your spiritual master, he will be able to understand what kind of tendency you have. Are you this kind of tendency or that kind of tendency? Further, one more verse I'm going to put for you. Therefore, the caste system in human society that is based solely upon birth should be understood as superficial. So it's not true, right? And not prescribed in the scriptures. This particularly mentioned in the Bhavisha Purana. Unfortunately, those in ignorance cannot understand that it's a man-made concoction. This also is mentioned in the scripture, right? So it's interesting. So you need to know these things so you can defend. Because in Hinduism, these other scriptures, other religions like to always attack the Varna, the caste system. They always say, you Hindus are not fair. So we need to understand what actually is the Varna system and what is currently going on in the name of caste system, right? And we need to answer them. You know how this entire problem came about? Why the caste system got corrupted is because if you read Bhagavatam, you know the story of how Parikshit Maharaj, he went to visit us. He was hunting in a forest and he was very thirsty, and he came to the one rishi's house and he wanted water, but the rishi was deeply in meditation and he completely ignored the guest. And after waiting for many hours, Parikshit Maharaj, for some reason, he got irritated, and then he said that you are not giving me water. I came to your house. So, but he decided to leave. But out of some irritation, there was a date snake nearby. He took it and put it on the shoulders of the rishi, so that the rishi will know, I have come, a guest has come, and you did not even welcome me. But after he left, his son, the rishi's son, came and saw a snake, a dead snake on around his father's shoulder. Then immediately he used his Brahminical power. Those days Brahminical powers was there. He could visualize what happened. And then he realized, oh, this king, he came and he thinks he's so great. After all, he's just a king, and he thinks he can what do you call, insult my father like this, dishonor my father, dishonor the Brahmanas like this. Doesn't he know that we are the top in society? How dare he treat us like this? So with that kind of anger, now can you imagine a Brahmana having that kind of anger? Already that is crossing already, isn't it? Immediately he uttered a curse. He said, in 7 days, this king will die by the bite of a takshaka. Takshaka is a snake bird. You can see the picture here. This is one of the pictures drawn by one of our artists, right? So he made such a curse. And you know, a Brahmana's curse cannot go in vain. It has to come true. So then this king, this sage, he woke up from his trance, and then he saw the sun in an angry way breaking his Brahmana thread. And then he immediately realized what has happened. By his power, he knew what has happened. And what did he do? Did he say, yes, my son, thank you for cursing that fella? Did he say like that? No. Immediately, he put his hand on his head. Hayyo, what have you done, my son? You have created calamity to this world. Because for a small mistake, you have given him a very severe punishment. And you have made the world lose a very, very dharmic king. And do you know what's the result of losing a very pious king? The world will fall into plundering and all kinds of horrible things. So this was part of the advent of Kali Yuga. So, you know, because Kali Yuga already started, Krishna already left the world. So it was part of Krishna's pastime that Parikshit Maharaj should create the advent of Kali. So the advent of Kali began with the deterioration of the Brahmanas. The Brahmana class was destroyed because of this cursing of the son of the sage upon Parikshit Maharaj. So that's how the Brahmanas fell down. So it's very easy for a Brahmana to fall down, right? So the Creator ordained virtue, gifting it with the power of holding the world together. But the Brahmanas lost that virtue at the beginning of Kali Yuga. So this is why the caste system came about eventually. When the Brahmanas were destroyed, when the Brahmanas lost their ability, lost their nature, then what happens? The entire system will go down. Now let's try to understand this Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra system. Is it that one class is higher than another class? So the Supreme Lord, Purusha means the Supreme, right? So he says that the Brahmanas are my mouth or my head, right? So imagine your body, let's say your own body. You have a head, you have shoulders and arms. The Kshatriyas are like the shoulders and arms of the Purusha. And you have your stomach, your waist and your stomach. So the Vaishyas are like your waist and your stomach. And then we have Shudras, which are the legs and the feet of the Purusha. Now, can the feet say that I am more important? Why you should always only glorify, you know? The feet will say, I want to eat food. Why are you always giving prasadam only to that stupid mouth? Give me that food. Give me the food. Why are you giving food only to that mouth? Every day I see that mouth eating food. So what's your answer? Is there any other way? Or the Vaishya, you know, the thighs, what's in the area? There's genital, there is your anus. Can you give food through that? Cannot, isn't it? But you know, if the mouth takes the food, the whole body enjoys, right? The stomach is satisfied. The Brahmana is given the food, the mouth is given the food, the stomach is satisfied, the food, the feet and the legs also get nutrition, correct? So we cannot say that one is not important or one is not. It's just that different things have different purposes. So therefore, you cannot say that the Shudras are useless. We only want Brahmanas. So we can cut off the legs. Can we cut off the leg? Can we say that I don't want my leg? This is Shudra, 4th class. What for? I'll cut off my head. I'll only feed the mouth. Who's going to suffer? The entire body is going to suffer, isn't it? So if the Shudras are cut off, or if the Vaishyas, let's say I don't want the stomach, I don't want all that, I'm only going to glorify the mouth only. So similarly, they all have their roles. So in society also, just like how we satisfy our mouth, our body, our everything is satisfied, in society also, if the Brahmanas are correct, the Brahmanas are given due glory and reciprocation, the entire society is led in the right direction. Imagine a headless body, or a body without a mouth. Now I'm asking you this question. Listen to this question. Can a human being survive without his legs? He can, right? Can a human being survive without his arms and shoulders? Let's say he has no arms. Can he survive without one? He can also, isn't it? Right? But let's say there is no head. Can a human being survive without a head?
No, Prabhu.
Right? So similarly, thank you for the answer. So similarly, society is going to hell if it doesn't have a head. So you have seen some of the different societies, isn't it? You have seen like a society where the king is the head, and then mercantile community is the shoulder, like that. So if a king is without guidance, without direction, then the king becomes an evil king, a greedy king. So it results in the French Revolution, correct? So like that, a head is very important in society, just like how it's important for human being. So Varnashram Charatva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashrama. Right? So actually, let's go a bit faster. So actually, when we follow this Varnashram, we are pleasing the Supreme Lord, because society is guided in the right way. So that is the purpose of Varnashram. So therefore, the highest aim of Varnashram Dharma is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Just like how the face, the hands, the legs, the stomach, the mouth all cooperates nicely for the satisfaction of us, of you, of me, of the person, right? So similarly, the Vaishya, the Kshatriya, the Shudra, the Brahmanas, if they all cooperate nicely without abusing one another, then who is satisfied? The body is satisfied, isn't it? The person is satisfied, right? So in society is satisfied. And in that way, the Supreme Lord is satisfied. So this is the understanding of Varna. So I've spoken to you about Varna. Now there is another point to it. There is also something called ashram. Now I'll go faster for this one. I'm not going to give a detailed talk about ashram, right? What is ashram? Ashram means a place where I can take shelter, protection. Now you can see here the picture. I've put a fortress, right? The fortress here is, fortress means I'm taking protection. Protection from what? Who am I taking protection from? So the protection here, Varna is about duties. Ashram is about going to the higher plane. That means it's now talking about moksha, how to go to the higher plane. So I'm taking protection from Maya. Maya is the one, because Maya will take one person away from moksha or going towards liberation or even higher. So to take protection from Maya, I go into these different fortresses. So I go into these different fortresses. So what are these fortresses? So human society must have these different fortresses where they can take shelter. So just like how we talked about dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, we have the 4 ashram. The 4 ashram first begins with brahmachari. So brahmachari is all about duty. What is brahmacharya? Brahmacharya means student life. It's all about duty. So just like we are students, you are students, right? So what's your duty? Your duty is to satisfy your parents. Your parents say, I need to do this. I want you to go to school and do this for me, or I want you to do the, help me at home. I want whatever the parents say or the teachers say. That's the duty of the student, right? Brahmachari. So that's dharma. And then grahastha. Grahastha means family life. The leader of the family, the father and the mother, right? That's grahastha. So they come under the category of artha and kama. What's artha? Artha means making money, collecting, making wealth. That's artha. So by the grahastha will know what is dharma. He knows what needs to be done, what should be done and what should not be done. What is sinful, what is not sinful. You know, karma, akarma. He will know these things. And then accordingly, he will earn money. And in this way, he will also satisfy his family. He will maintain his family. That's also his dharma, correct? So he is given allowance for artha, but because he's doing so much, he may have desires. So grahastha is given some room for desires. But even these desires are according to dharma. He cannot cross dharma. So according to dharma, he can have desires. For example, he can eat nice food stuff. He can have sexual relationship with his wife. So these are allowed in grahastha ashram. Then comes another ashram, vanaprastha. So vanaprastha is something where it's more towards dharma and moksha. And this is done when the person retires from family life. So a brahmachari who later becomes a grahastha, when later he retires from family life, that is vanaprastha. That means he is now beginning to think about higher dharma, right? He's beginning to think about the liberation or becoming a devotee, serving the Supreme Lord. That's vanaprastha. And then we have sannyasi. Sannyasi is someone, you know, vanaprastha, he's practicing renunciation. He's practicing. Sannyasi is already achieved renunciation. He is no longer part of the social system. Now, I don't want to speak a lot about Varnashram. I just want you to know about the 4 aspects of Varnashrama, right? And their duties in very brief. So it's more important that you know about the Varna, about the Kshatriya, Brahmana, and all that. Later, you can learn more about the ashram in another class. Now, what's the big picture? What's all this about? This Varna and ashram that we have looked about, what do we understand? Why did God create this kind of societies? That's the big picture, right? What do we gain by doing these things? Why do we have to put ourselves? So if we are in Brahmachari ashram, we are protected in that ashram against Maya. We have our own sets of rules, right? And similarly, if you are in the Grahastha ashram, you also have a set of rules which protects you from Maya. So as long as you follow the rules and conducts. The wife is a very big protection for the husband. Similarly, the husband is a very big protection for the wife. So in this way, they remain protected in against Maya. So like that, sannyasi also, they have their sets of rules, right? A sannyasi must never be seen associating with another woman, a woman at all. A sannyasi has to maintain very strict, he has only 3 pieces of clothing. You know, how many pieces of clothing do you have? I know I have quite a number. A sannyasi has only 3 pieces of clothing. So like that, they have rules and regulations. So all of these is meant to protect them from Maya. Why? So that they can do what? So that's the big picture. Now I'm going to talk to you about the big picture. We are almost done. Just bear with me a few more minutes, right? One of the last few slides. So the big picture is, now in this world, we have 2 types of people. We have the civilized people, you know, and we have the uncivilized people or the barbarians. So the civilized people are called Aryans. And what are Aryans? Aryans are people who know what is the goal of life. That means they know that this world is a world which is full of misery and it is temporary. They know that it is Dukkalayam Ashashvatam. So these people are called Aryans. And these people also know that in this material world there is always Janma, Vyadi, Jara and Mrityu. Birth, age, old age, disease and death. They know this. And they also know that there is a higher destination, which is the spiritual world. So these people are called Aryans. Whether they know detailedly or don't it very detailedly, that's a different story. But they at least accept this, right? That's Aryan. So, and they know what is right, what is wrong. An Aryan society is made up of bulls. You know what's this? This is a bull. And what's the bull's legs? The bull's leg is made up of the 4 pillars of religion. Anyone can tell me what the 4 pillars of religion?
Mercy.
Mercy, someone said. Yes. Daya. Daya means, yes. Mataji. Can you say it, all of them?
Goodness.
Truthfulness. Satyam. What else? Cleanliness. Saucham. And the last one is austerity or tapasya, right? So we have cleanliness, we have truthfulness, we have austerity, and we have mercy. So a society which is made up of these things, these 4 legs of the bull, is called Aryan society. And Aryan society has Varna and Ashrama. So Varna, what's the point? Let me just recap to you what's Varna. Varna is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, grouped according to the 3 modes of material nature. Correct? And Varna is to be, it's not that one is more superior or one is less superior. No, all of them is important, all of them are essential. It's just that one is more important, that's all. Like, for example, simply in the sense of leading, but they all enjoy the fruits together. This is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra to satisfy the Supreme Purusha. That is Varna. And I just spoke to you about ashram. So while we are doing these duties happily according to our own nature, we are happy. Therefore, you see, if we know our nature and we are engaged correctly, then we are happy. We are not frustrated. At the same time, we take shelter of the ashrama. So therefore, we are protected. You see, the Varna satisfies us and the ashram protects and guides us. Right? So what do we get in the end? So these are the 4 ashrams which I mentioned. Can you play it softly? Very softly. And what will this lead to? This will lead to, for us, cultivating jnana. So as we follow Varna, the 4 classes of society and the 4 ashrams, slowly, we will develop knowledge, jnana. What kind of knowledge? More knowledge about the spiritual world, more knowledge about this material world. All right? We develop this knowledge about what's the goal of life. And together with that knowledge, jnana, we will develop one more thing. We will develop vairagya. Vairagya means detachment. We will learn to become detached. Detached from name, fame, glory, greed, from matter. We will learn to be equipoised. Right? This is the purpose. And gradually, slowly, we can attain moksha or liberation from this cycle of birth and death. So this was the purpose of the Varnashram system. So that people can gradually, as they take, life after life, a perfect Shudra in his next life will become a Vaishya. And then a perfect Vaishya in his next life will become a Kshatriya. And a perfect Kshatriya in his next life will become a Brahmana. And then a Brahmana who follows everything properly will attain moksha. But it's not only strictly like that. Even so, a Shudra who is perfectly following and who serves the other classes nicely, and in this way he also can attain moksha. That's a possibility for all of the classes. But this is the traditional Varnashrama system. So there's a gradual elevation towards liberation. And we also learn that just because a system is corrupt doesn't mean we throw away the system. It means we need to do some modification. So what needs to be done now? Now you may ask the question, all this is very nice, but in Kali Yuga nowadays, we don't have this kind of systems anymore. You see the world, you see how the world works. Nobody is going to take you seriously if you say that we have this kind of systems. So what needs to be done now? So in Kali Yuga is very difficult. It's not easy to establish the traditional Varnashrama system as it is. So therefore, Prabhupada established the Varnashrama College. He mentioned, I have created the head, I have created the real need of society, which is Harinam, which is Bhagavata Dharma. That I have established. But I don't have time to establish the support system for that, which is the Varnashrama. So he left that to his disciples. He said, all of you, please develop this Varnashram system. But how to do this? How to make it work in Kali Yuga? And Prabhupada has given many guidance for that. So this is how it's going to work. So what we have to do now is we have to nurture first-class Brahmanas. That doesn't mean everybody becomes Brahmana. No. It means that those people who are inclined towards Brahminical nature, ensure that we identify them and we train them nicely so that they become first-class Brahmanas, so that they can eventually guide society very nicely. So there is a need for this kind of people. Imagine a first-class Brahmana is a president of our country. Isn't it nice? Wouldn't we want that? Right? With all the wonderful qualities of a Brahmana who can guide us. So therefore, there's definitely a need. So that's the first aspect of Varnashram College. Second is, we need to educate masses on Daivi Varnashrama model. Now, what is this Daivi Varnashrama model? I will speak to you more about this in the next slide. Not a long one, just a summary of it, right? So we need to talk to people about how to make this Varnashram system, the support, work in Kali Yuga, in current devotional society, how to make it work. So that's what's been planning now. And the third one is to build and support communities. So to come up with communities like farming communities and many other communities to support. So don't think that Varnashram means farming. No, Varnashram doesn't mean farming. Varnashram means to create a support system so that we eventually find it easy. Remember, Varna, the purpose of Varna is so that we are comfortable, we are happy, we are comfortable and that we are happy in doing our work. At the same time, it's bringing us towards spiritual life, right? Like right now, many of us are uncomfortable, right? We have to work in factories, we have to work in so many horrible places. We are not really happy or comfortable, but no choice, ma. What to do, isn't it? That's the world works. So this is a new revolution to change the world, right? To create support systems so that we find it easy for us to chant, easy for us to read Bhagavatam, or at least hear nice classes, or have nice festivals, nice kirtan melas, nice cooking feasts, right? So these are things to support that system. So therefore, we need, just now I mentioned Devi Varnashrama model. Now, what do you mean Varnashrama model? So, you know, what's currently happening in India, that's called Asuric Varnashram. Asuric means demonic Varnashram. That means it's a corruption of the current Varnashram system simply to suit the greed and prestige of one class, namely the Brahmana class. So that's Asuric. We reject this. This is not scriptural. And then we have the traditional Varnashram system, which is all of that which I just spoke to you about just now, right? That's how the Vedic system works. But as I said, we don't really have four classes, the Kshatriyas, perfect Kshatriya classes, perfect Brahmana classes in society now. So what is this? How to make it work? So how to make it work is Prabhupada has mentioned Daivi Varnashram. Now this is not a concoction of Prabhupada. It's also mentioned in the scriptures. This is actually the real Varnashram system, the purpose, the heart, the essence of the Varnashram system, right? Now, what does that mean? Very simple. I'll explain to you very simply in just this one slide, and then we can finish. So we know there are four types of societies, right? What does it mean? It means people who have certain inclination. Now, in Kali Yuga, none of these societies are there. We only have Shudra, right? But still, there are some people who have some qualities of a Brahmana. Not a lot maybe, but some qualities. And some qualities of a Kshatriya, some qualities of a Vaishya. And we should know what is the real quality of a Shudra also. So these people, with, let's say for example, Kshatriya quality, they are happier to do certain things. Like for example, management. If you talk about ISKCON currently, right? There are some people who like to do management. Not because they like name, fame, and glory. If you do management because you like the name, fame, you like to be garlanded in public, you like the Haribol, Jai, this kind of things, that means you're a Shudra, not a real Kshatriya. Right? So I'm talking about the real Kshatriya. The real Kshatriya means people who like to do management because they want to serve the mission in the best way they think they are good at. Some people have a knack for it. You know, they are good at commanding. So then there are some people who are Vaishyas. I like to earn money for the temple. I like to contribute. I like to cook. I like to do so many other things. So these are Vaishyas, right? So like that, then there are some people who like to do many other things. Like we like to prepare, you know, festival is coming. We like to build this. We like to do that. We like to build the chariot, right? So it's like this, you know, you have a kingdom. To run the kingdom nicely, you need infrastructure. So the Shudra is responsible for infrastructure. What's the point of managing if you don't have followers, if you don't have infrastructure to manage, correct? But that doesn't mean they are lower people. No. Same thing with Vaishya, same thing with Kshatriya, same thing with Brahmana. Because why? In Kali Yuga, we are all Shudras, but with some of these qualities. But even more important than Brahmana is devotee. We are all devotees. And a Vaishnava is higher than the Brahmana. Because a Vaishnava is higher than a Brahmana, he can do the work of any of these things. He can do Brahminical work, he can do Kshatriya work, he can do Vaishya work, and he does Shudra work. And listen to this statement, very important statement. He does not consider one work to be lower than the other work. He doesn't see one work as lower than the other work, because a devotee sees everything as devotional service. And you remember, in devotional service, it is not the work, it is the mood, it is the sincerity. That means if you are sweeping the floor, but you are sincerely doing this to please Krishna, you are doing something much higher than Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. Do you understand? Right? So that is, it's a lot of things to talk about. It's a lot of things to talk about. Later we will see if there are any questions. This is a huge topic to discuss some other time, right? But just for you to understand that this is how Daivi Varnashram works. It means that we train ourselves to what we are good at, right? But at the same time, we are expert, we still can do other things. It doesn't mean that a sannyasi who is a Brahmana does not wash the toilet. You see, there are many people who do that. So, because for the service of Krishna, anything can be done according to scriptural injunction and according to the direction of the Guru, spiritual master. So, this is Daivi Varnashram, right? So, practically, it means we want to identify Brahmana natured people, Kshatriya natured people, Vaishya natured people, and Shudra natured people, and train them, give them training, and give them knowledge, so that they understand the goal of all these things, right? And in this way, we can have a very structured ISKCON society. We can have a very structured external society as well. Eventually, when ISKCON takes over the world, we will take over the world. Time only separating. Don't worry, we will, right? So this is the essence here. We aren't all the same, but we are all equal. We are all jivas, we are all servants of Krishna's, we are all Vaishnavas, and in that sense, we are all the same, right? But the duties are different. But even though the duties are different, the duties are all equal. Some are more necessary, but they are all equally important. All right, so that's it. Thank you very much. Any questions? Anyone? Thank you for bearing with me, all of you. I'd like to invite if there are any questions from anyone.